I don't think I'm hearing the music out of that like I'm supposed to right now. Good afternoon and welcome back, champions. My name is Dylan, and I'm coming to you live from the Codename Entertainment streaming studio slash closet slash 10x10 storage room located in beautiful Victoria, BC, Canada. We have some fun stuff set up for you today, specifically a Q&A with somebody that you always want to ask questions of. But first, I'd like to thank Dungeons & Dragons for allowing us the use of this channel. It is and will always be an honor to be here. And shout outs to Erica and Clive for all their help co-producing and moderating our show, because I couldn't do that as well as this. So thank you. Without further ado, I will jump right into it and introduce today's guest, co-founder of Codename Entertainment and lead developer or lead designer of Idle Champions. Please welcome Justin Stocks to the stream. I should turn your mic on too.
Oh, thank you. Hello, everyone.
Yeah, they're both a little quiet. It's kind of weird.
I'm just going to pull this way back and just lean way back in my chair and just relax.
Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah. I have no idea if questions have been pouring in yet or not, because usually what happens is people realize it's you and they're like, I can ask that specific question. Yeah, they're not here yet. So,
well, there's nothing else D&D related to talk about today. So
no. An uneventful day in the world of Dungeons and Dragons where absolutely nothing was announced.
Yeah.
Or nothing is coming. So that's just kind of seriously though, was as happy as anybody else to see a really nice gory body horror trailer for Baldur's Gate 3. Now no longer dealing with hellish things, dealing with illithids, I guess.
Bursting from people's bodies.
Yeah, man, it's that what is it, Ceramorphosis or something? It's something that like hardly anybody ever seems to use in their games, at least in the ones I play. But it's the week-long transformation into an illithid that seems to be a lot faster now.
We'll have to stick that in our game somehow.
Yeah. Just heads that pop, and then it's an illithid.
Yeah. It's a great idea.
Bursting brains.
We'll have one NPC, like one enemy somewhere in the game where if you keep it on your screen for like a week, it turns into a mind flayer.
Oh, no, you got to do it. You got to do it the Baldur's Gate cinematic way, where it's an instant pop, pretty much.
That could be too.
Yeah. Let's see, Garwar. How close do you feel you are to leaving early access? Do you think it will happen before Year 3 events? Oh, that's an interesting question.
Yeah, it's a good question. There's still a couple of things I want to get done before we leave early access, and probably the biggest one, well, there's a couple of them. One, a lot of players want to replay variants, so I want to get something about that done before we leave early access. And then the second thing is sort of the problem of having so many champions in the game, but you only have a formation of 10 slots, and so I think we're over 40 champions now, or yeah, somewhere around there. And there's just only 10 slots in every adventure, and so you got most of your champions sitting on the bench if you've got them all. So we want to have some sort of solution for that as well before we leave early access. But after we got those two things done, I'm happy to push us out of early access and just focus on the sort of content schedule we've been doing and balance patches and really tightening up the experience.
Now, I don't know if the name in chat is Declasser or DC Lasser or what, but they linked the Baldur's Gate 3 trailer. Not safe for work if you are at work, unless you work in the video game industry or at some D&D related thing. It's DC? Okay, yeah, DC Lasser. It's messier than I was expecting. It's not a complaint. I was just like, oh. And when I sent the link to the video to my DM, and it's just like, in 3 words, holy shit. He was not expecting it either. So yeah, awesome. Gundam Mac 0311. Why is Idle Champions so fun? And I'm waiting for the gates to open.
Golly, I don't know. Why is it so fun?
Is that a serious question, or I think that our game really appeals to somebody who wants to get into the minutia of formation optimization, like just optimization.
That is really fun.
I don't know why it's so appealing. Maybe we're all OCD. I don't know. But just optimizing and re-optimizing over and over. Like even my formation right now in the background could probably be better. It's functional though. It'll work for a while.
Yeah, it'll do the trick.
Yeah. I forgot that I have the Zombie Celeste skin. I haven't been using Celeste lately. Interesting.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Any new champions are going to be added from other D&D shows like Sirens of the Realms, Critical Role, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're adding those sort of as it makes sense. I know for some of them, like a lot of people want to see a lot of champions from Critical Role. There's a lot more challenges around that one, but Sirens of the Realms, I'm sure we're talking to Satine and whatnot about more of those, and
the possibility has been broached. I don't know.
High Rollers, the Erois stuff. There's still several of those champions to add. C Team still has a champion to add. Apparently, Penny Arcade, the guys there have already promised that we'll get other champions from acquisitions.
I got the impression that some of them are very excited at the idea of having champions in the game.
It's news to us, but that's exciting.
Yeah,
Can't wait for that to happen.
No complaints.
I mean, we're always looking at, we like to maintain a good balance of sort of community champions and champions from lore and champions that we just make up ourselves. And the ones that we make up ourselves are actually really important because it turns out that nobody really plays like evil champions or evil characters really in like streaming or even in like the D&D lore. There's not a lot of really good evil characters that aren't like epic evil characters. So
there's a Serac, but there's the next aspiring a Serac who might be at a power level that you could actually use as a champion.
Yeah, so that's always a challenge. So we like to put in our own evil champions from time to time, or we put them in as neutral, and then no one uses them for a year, and we change them to be evil. Sort of our MO, I guess.
Yeah. Speaking of, who else is neutral? Who else can we turn to the dark side over the next little while?
Well, I mean, Dritz is good, I think. But nobody uses them, so we might just have to do some sort of like alternate universe Dritz, like give him a mustache and a goatee, and be like, "This is Dritz from some other universe, and he's like evil and."
But he has a long-standing antagonist who is evil, who nobody likes or cares about, so we haven't added them to the game. But he has another half already in a way.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true.
Alrighty. A little question for this Q&A. Fighting through forests, caves, and dungeons, collecting more gold than they could possibly carry. Finally back home from their adventure. Do our champions even do taxes?
Yeah, I think that probably depends on where they live. Like maybe in Waterdeep, there's some tax collectors.
There's definitely taxes in Waterdeep. Yeah.
But I imagine if you just live in the middle of the forest like a hermit.
I'd be very surprised if any of the members of the C team actually make money.
Well, I mean, that just all goes to union dues or business dues. Yeah. All goes into Cathrissa's satchel of
his skimming.
Yeah.
Shatterhand, any word on how sorting out the DPS meter is going? I'm in the middle of my second break from the game due to frustration. All the best, and the game is still great.
Yeah, so the DPS meter is something we've actually been really focused on for the last couple of months here, and we've been trying out a couple of things and iterating on what we have, and we're feeling pretty good about some changes that we have coming up. So hopefully in the next little while, we will be able to start to push those changes out and make the DPS meter feel a little bit better. And I guess I can kind of expand on what we're sort of thinking on that, or sort of our approach to that. And so one of the big things that we're looking at doing is separating ultimate damage from your DPS meter, because your DPS meter goes up and down as like a bunch of enemies appear on the screen, and as your add or remove guys, or Deacon's Doom stacks go up or down, or Valania's stacks go up or down, and so that can make your DPS fluctuate pretty extremely over a short period of time. And so one of the things we're looking at doing is separating out the number that actually affects your ultimate damage and your fire breath potions, so that that damage doesn't fluctuate quite as much. So that's one of the things we're looking at. And then we're also looking at simplifying the DPS meter so that there's a number that you can look at that only changes when you as a player take action, like move someone around in the formation, buy an ability, put a new champion in, etc. So that way, everyone's got some number that they can look at to see just the absolute power of their formation without taking into account things that can stack, like enemies stacking up, or enemy debuffs that may or may not occur in the area, or deacon stacks that go up or down, or Cthulhu's demons that summon and then go away. So all those things that are variable, we're pulling those out of one of these numbers that will appear up top. Mm-hmm. So anyway, there'll be more on that soon. And hopefully in the next little while, we'll be able to get that out to all of you.
Is that something where players can expect to see a DPS increase or decrease with their formations, or will it just kind of stabilize everything and they'll have to figure it out?
So in terms of the actual damage your formation's doing, we're not changing any of that.
Okay.
All we're doing is changing the numbers that are represented, and then we're also changing how ultimate damage is calculated. But with sort of the testing we've done on that so far, it's not making much of a difference. Because of the thing that we're actually basing it off of. I don't want to get into the specifics of that because it's still in flux.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. Next question. Will we get Walnut before she possibly dies and before the end of the event?
Golly, I hope so. Can't say specifics on when Walnut is in the queue, but she is definitely, she definitely maybe someday may appear in the game. I don't know if you've talked about any specifics on that.
I don't know if we have.
I don't think we have.
I was told not to give specifics anymore because I spoil stuff too early. So I could say that she's definitely coming.
Definitely maybe coming.
I think
possibly.
Oh, I have to make a choice here that's pretty important.
We saved the best for last.
Yeah. Not bulk up. There we go. There's all the DPS for that formation.
Ah.
Sorted. It was the only specialization I hadn't picked yet.
Kind of an important one for this particular formation.
Yeah. Walnut is definitely coming to the game.
Maybe.
Yeah. Most likely. I mean, we did showcase a picture of the completed aesthetic of Walnut that Amy and Wizards approved for use in the game, and we've shared the Walnut champion image on the C team, and for those lucky enough to be at the Descent, there was a nice tall Walnut banner behind Amy when they did their signing. But yeah.
So we've got all the art. It's
just a question of none of those signs made it back. But
should we figure out what she does?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I assume she summons forest creatures and turns into a wolf. But that's my assumption. I don't actually know, so I guess we'll wait and see.
Were you looking at the design doc the other day?
No. Although after our call with Amy, I did throw a ton of ideas at Chris. I'm like, here's my thoughts. Mm-hmm. I'm like, have fun. And then I went back to work.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
The one spoiler I will say for Walnut is that she does curse. More of her abilities include curses than any other champion we've done before.
Oh, really?
She really swears a lot.
Oh, profanity. Okay, I was like, she curses?
No, not curses.
Druids curse?
No, she's not a warlock.
Okay.
Smiley.
She's
not a WoW classic warlock.
Oh man,
curse.
Where you're like farming Dire Maul before anybody else could even do it as a group. Is there a chance there will be a training room or some type of practice environment where people can play with formations that would allow them to creatively test potential formation output? Mainly just a static environment to see more detailed non-variable formation values.
Yeah, that's something that's on my list for quality of life things that I would like to get done someday. And I would actually like to potentially link that to formation saves and have basically a much more detailed formation editor. But that's all sort of in the hazy future of, once we have a bunch of resources freed up to do that.
You could give them infinite formation slots to do it, so they could try any combination they want, or up to 12 champions, even though you'll never be able to use 12 champions. No.
You just have a system. You just push a button and just iterates over every possible formation and every possible monster that could attack, and then it just puts your best formation in.
Oh wow. That sounds like it'll melt our servers.
No, it runs on their computers.
Oh, it'll melt their potatoes.
It melts their computers.
There was somebody not that long ago asked if they could have a setting that was below potato. For those who don't know, there's some potatoes in the settings menu. If you lower settings,
we'll add the Apple setting.
Yeah. Alrighty. When will we get a creature champion, like a beholder that isn't a familiar?
It's a cool idea. We don't have anything like that planned at this point. but it'd be kind of cool. We are experimenting with other races that we don't currently have in the game. Like I think you announced that there's a lizard folk champion coming. So that's something that's coming down the pipe, but we don't have any plans for any other sort of non-humanoid monsters.
That would be troubling or challenging in the sense that anything that's not bipedal is going to look pretty funky in that formation shape, like just with the way that we have everything set up.
Like even having a centaur champion would be challenging even.
Yeah.
And that's half human.
Yeah, and that's a playable 5e race. So yeah.
Maybe we could do like a half human, half fish thing, like a merman. But the bottom half would have to be the human part, so it had the legs. And then the top half would be the fish part.
As long as it's a shark.
All right,
King Shark is one of the best characters ever. All right. More uses for bench champions, like missions as in Crusaders?
Yeah, that's something I was talking about earlier in the early access question of sort of something for champions that you're not using actively in your formation, something for them to do. We want to, we did missions in Crusaders, so if anyone's played Crusaders, there's a system where you can send your unused Crusaders off to do stuff, but we want to probably do something a little bit more interesting, something that maybe embraces the formation mechanics and whatnot. So we've got some plans for that, and it's just a question of when we get around to that. So yes, we want to add more uses for bench champions.
Hellestream, have you considered Zachnafane de Erden? He's evilish. He's pretty neat and was brought back to life as Drit's racist dad.
Oh, you had me at racist. I mean...
Oh, God.
No. Yeah, we haven't considered that one. There are some options for evil champions, but we've never really... there's none that have really jumped out at me aside from maybe Artemis.
Yeah, who? I don't know who that is. Mortimer, are new familiars planned and or close to a release?
Yeah, we've got some plans for more familiars, but we can't really say sort of where they'll come from or whether they'll be bought with gems or premium purchases or potentially other systems in the game. So yeah, we're always going to be looking at adding new familiars and even new ways to use familiars.
I was going to ask you on an ETA on that, but you said that we don't know when or where exactly they're coming from.
We have a rough release date, but it's not concrete yet.
If it's that rough, we shouldn't mention it. It's one of those things where players ask pretty frequently, like they want more familiars. But yeah, they're coming. Like they're definitely coming.
Yeah.
I know our artists like drawing them. Alrighty. Are you all considering a new Cthulhu skin given the wacky hijinks going on the C team? Which, if you haven't been following, I don't want to spoil anything for anybody because that's a little unfair because there are people who don't keep up to date on shows, and I don't always keep up to date on shows. But let's just say that thank you all for voting Bad Fortune. Yes. Because it created some really interesting stuff.
Yes. Keep voting Bad Fortune.
Yeah. And that came to a head on yesterday's episode, and yeah, we could very justifiably have some outfits for Cthulhu, so that might happen.
Yeah, I can see that.
Here we go. Are we going to get Kelvin Blackstaff Aronson, Elminster, and the Seven Sisters? So are we going to get some of the most powerful magic users ever to have existed in the canon of the Forgotten Realms?
Of course.
I mean, Elminster's already in the game in a way, but I suspect that people want him as a champion.
We got some plans to add some of those more like super powerful sort of D&D personalities to the game. Not necessarily as champions, but as people you can interact with and do interesting things with. So there are some plans in motion, but nothing's concrete yet.
Yeah. And
any think news? Of like what comes before concrete? What happens when something's? It's kind of right now. It's kind of like
wet cement.
Kind of like unfired clay.
Unfired.
We got some unfired clay in the works right now.
Some.
We're just sitting
moist
there.
earth.
We're just sitting there at our those clay pottery stations, trying to shape some stuff.
Any news on buffing the Companions of the Hall?
Yeah. So Companions of the Hall the original plan was to have those as part of our Year 1 champion update, but I think based on our experience doing the Core 12 update, we might break that into a couple of balance updates instead of doing one big one for all the Year 1 champions, because there'd be something like there's 17 events
and two evergreens, so 19.
So that'd be a lot of champions to do all at once. So I think rather than do that, we'd probably try and split it out and maybe do half and half. So the Companions of the Hall would be in one half of that, all of them together, and then whoever we left over would be in the other half probably. But we still haven't quite nailed down exactly how we want to do that.
Okay. Fellini would like to know if there's any way to move saves from different platforms, or any plans to let players move saves from one platform to another.
Yeah, we don't have any plan to do that right now. And the biggest reason for that is just that we're on so many different platforms that it actually is starting to be a lot of overhead to keep the versions up to date with each other. So I know, like, recently we still had version 2.2.2 on some of the consoles, where we had like 2.2.6 on Apple and 2.2.9 on Android. And the problem with that is just if we let you just move saves between platforms as you wish, we could have maybe a champion that has the tech out on one platform but not the other platform, and so we're delaying the event on that platform so that people there don't have bugs. But you just move your save over and then you have them, and there's a lot of kind of overhead in that, and I don't really feel comfortable with how effectively we're keeping our platforms all equal right now. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's something that could happen in the future, but we don't have any plans for it anytime in sort of the immediate future.
Can you give players a bit of an insight into why it's a challenge with all those different versions across different platforms?
Sure. I mean,
it's obvious to me, but it's because I know more about it than what we're talking about. So I just kind of.
So on some of the platforms, we can just, if we find a bug or we want to fix something, we can just push out an update at our own will. But then on other platforms, there's a process we have to go through submission and certification, and that all takes a bunch of extra time, and you never really know sometimes when something is just going to break for the tester, and that delays things. So for example, with Apple, from time to time, we do a submission to Apple almost every week, but from time to time, our submission will get rejected for something that has been in the game for months. We have to deal with that sometimes. For the consoles, we'll do a submission, and the submission backends will be down, and we won't be able to do it when we want to. And so there's just a lot of different things that can potentially go wrong. And so we try to have as much leeway as we can for those, but we just don't have direct control over that stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's difficult for me to assure people we'll be able to keep all of these versions perfectly up to date, because we just don't have the final say on that. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
And there's always the chance that Apple will do something like what happened with us in OS 12.
Yeah. You never know when a platform's just going to suddenly triple your memory usage, and then have your game just randomly start crashing on phones it wasn't crashing on before, because they hate us.
Now, Scarab Phoenix brings up an interesting question here, asking about whether or not players could have a champion with a male counterpart to Rosie's abilities, or even just the idea of duplicating a champion's ability set. I mean, we're always looking for new and interesting things to do, and we're always looking for places where we have holes in the meta that we can fill. So, it's hard to say, because I don't really like to duplicate a champion's abilities just with slight tweaks like that. That feels pretty lazy to me. And whenever I do a new champion, I want to do something that's pretty new and hadn't been seen before and is novel. And that's the reason why all of our developers hate me. But it means that if we did something with Rosie where she specifically interacts with females in some way, we probably won't do a champion that does the exact same thing but with males.
But down the road, I could see someone doing something similar, or something that functions in a similar way, but is done with just some tweaks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tie-dyed astronomer wants to know if we can make a setting that blocks the blood on distractions.
Yeah, so right now we just have the setting for procedural blood, which is like you can see on the screen right now. Whenever you hit someone, it goes.
Usually I have it off for when I'm streaming.
So the distraction, so that's really easy for us to turn off because it's just additional clips that are just added on. It's not like it's linked to a particular attack animation or anything like that. Whereas with the distractions, the blood is actually part of the graphic. And so in order to cancel that out, we'd have to have two versions of the graphic and swap it out. And well, we just haven't done that just because we've had other things that we've had our artists drawing. And there's just there's some additional overhead in doing that, and we just haven't felt like the benefit of that outweighs the cost to it. So, we could do it. We just haven't decided to do it yet.
Gundam Mac 0311. I got the Boo outfit for Minsk. Any other companion themed outfits in the future?
Yeah, we've got we have a whole bunch of outfits planned. We're just kind of trying to figure out how to dole them out. So we've done a lot of free outfits in the past. Obviously, the Boo costume was a paid one that we did for charity. And so I think we're just look at where it makes sense to give those out, and certainly there will be more of them in the future.
Mm-hmm. This is an interesting one from Evilmond. Will we ever be able to get pay-only content as a casual player?
So what is that? I guess there's some familiars and the golden epics, and maybe that one skin. Maybe. It's hard to say exactly how those sort of systems are gonna work in the future. In general, we like to try and thank people who've paid and given us some financial support. So we like to try and keep that exclusive, so they feel like they got a reward for helping to support the game. But with that said, I'm open to adding ways in the game over time to get some of those items. Obviously, it doesn't make sense to be able to get all of them for free in a pretty easy way, because that just sort of diminishes the purchases that people made. But I could see maybe a way to get a limited number of them over time. But we'll see. I mean, we did something in Crusaders with the challenge mode where you could buy a GE with the challenge mode, but it took a couple of weeks of challenges, and then it was a randomly rotating GE, so you weren't guaranteed to get exactly the best one right off the bat. So I could see something like that where there's a system in the game eventually.
Okay, so if you could choose between Pumat Sol or Shikasta from Critical Role to add to the game, which would you choose? I mean, I know who I'd choose, but...
Who would you choose?
Pumat Sol, easy.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, Shikasta makes more sense as an actual champion, but I would just put Pumat Sol in as a shopkeeper. And then the other versions of Pumat Sol behind him. But yeah. I just thought it was a more entertaining character. I don't know. I just remember the expression on everybody's faces when Matt Mercer busted out that voice for the first time, because it was clear that none of the cast had heard that voice before, and they just kind of all turned and were like, what is this crazy, I don't know, rural Canadian sounding, I don't know how else to describe it. It's wonderful. Mm-hmm. Not that Shikasta's bad. Shikasta's pretty awesome. Kari's an awesome actor. Oh, yeah, people linking Pumat emojis. All right, I'm enjoying the weekly challenges. Do you have any hints you could give us regarding upcoming events? So upcoming events like just the normal events, or more things like weekly challenges, or what do you think we're looking at here? I don't know. I think they mean upcoming weeks of challenges as opposed to upcoming weekly challenges. Yeah, weekly challenges. Yeah, right. As opposed to. What is coming? So we try to theme them around sort of things that are happening in the game. So certainly the Dragon Down event is coming up. Mm-hmm. So I would expect to see some challenges focused around that.
And there's also a challenge coming up either next week or a couple of weeks from now with Force Grey, with a Force Grey focus. So using all the Force Grey champions. So if you don't know who the Force Grey champions are, look through everyone's profile, because as long as you've got Hitch, you've got them all. And see if you can find some formations that use all of those guys, because that might be handy.
Cool. Any thoughts on guild mechanics in the game?
Yeah, so we get this question quite a bit about sort of multiplayer mechanics in the game. And I know right now we're not really ready to go down the multiplayer road, but I think that's something that would be interesting to do in the future. But at this immediate time, it's not something that we're looking at doing. But I think it'd be really cool. I think it'd be cool to have some multiplayer features where you could group up or contribute multiple players' DPS to it. But it's just not something we're doing right at this time. We got some other low-hanging fruit to work on first.
Okay. Why all the exotic hate for Ashara? Why no Turtle, Warforged? Can we just plain remove the half-blood option?
There's like half orcs and half elves all over the place. There's actually more half-bloods than there are Turtles or Warforged in the game.
That's true.
But
I'd be very surprised if Ashara could bond with a Warforged. I mean, there are really not that many, if any, on Chult. Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, Ashara doesn't have bonds for everyone. Maybe in a DPS cap update she'll get another round of them. But right now there are no plans to add Turtle or Warforged to her yet, or Lizard folk for that matter.
Yeah, I was gonna say the next question would just be about are we gonna add with Lizard folk?
Yeah, not right away.
Yeah.
And same with
Aarakocra.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
Just 'cause we don't really have any DPS Aarakocra, so.
So Marco Somalo says they love the game, but I found some of the writing problematic, albeit a very small amount. Who should I address about this? I was going to say that really depends on the context. Most of our game was written by Scott Fitzgerald Gray, one of the editors of the D&D books. All the printed 5e books just about have him in the masthead as one of the editors. Other adventures were written by Justin and by Dave and by Chris.
Those are the ones you have a problem with. That's fine. I understand that.
So anyways, you can always, if it's something like a typo, or we have something that's contextually off in the scheme of D&D, because sometimes things miss us and miss wizards when they do, their once over on things, and we get something wrong. If something's wrong, please let us know with an in-game support ticket.
Yeah.
If you just don't like it, I guess also you can find ways to let us know.
Open a ticket. When in doubt, open a ticket.
Yeah.
Dave loves getting tickets.
Yeah. And if it's in a specific area, please let us know which adventure and which area it is that you saw this, whatever it is, because then we can actually find it. It's super helpful.
No, I probably fix half a dozen typos a week that people report. Dave's shaking his fist at me. Open tickets, do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love fixing typos. I want the game to have no typos in it. That's a really, really hard thing for a game that's got 40,000 lines of text in it like ours does. But we'll keep on chopping away at those, and hopefully someday down the road, once we stop adding new content, we will have a typo-free game. But it's actually really funny because I think we got a typo report for one of the original 6 adventures a couple of weeks ago. And the game's been out for nearly 2 years. And yet there was this typo that no one had ever reported that was in one of the first couple adventures that people grind away on all day, every day.
But everybody has their free play dialogue turned off, so they don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about purple grung champions?
Love me some grungs. Need some grung champions. That's a great idea. There's a whole bunch of grungs. There's that streaming show, right? The grung
one grung above. I think it was. That was it.
Grung to live. Sounds like a
yeah.
Soap
Lauren's in chat. What was the name of that show? It was one grung above, right? That was the name of the. It's yeah. It's been a while since it was on, so I've forgotten about it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, one grung above.
Yeah.
Um,
I like one grung to live.
One
It
grung
sounds
to
like,
live.
yeah.
It's just about some vicious grung that's somehow still alive.
No, it's a grung soap opera.
Oh, like a telenovela.
Yeah.
That'd be wonderful, actually. Alrighty. Will you add a more in-depth achievement section that might include collectible skins and how they were and are obtained?
Yeah. There's a lot of places in the game where we could have progress bars that we don't currently have progress bars, and I personally love filling progress bars.
Yeah, it is
so,
nice.
So I could see us doing something to that effect, where there's like a collectibles area, or even just like a master progression screen that just shows you everything in the game with a progress bar, and like you can go fill this one, fill that one. That'd be amazing.
All right. I took a pretty long break from the game. Are there any community resources you, or hey, the rest of chat, would recommend on how to catch back up on everything that has changed?
Ooh, that's a good question. I know in the Discord, the Untitled Champions Discord, the wiki channel is pretty active, and I know they've been updating the unofficial wiki there for quite a while, and I think it's looking pretty good.
Is it the Wikia or the Gamepedia they keep updating? I always get it mixed up. There's two.
I'm not sure.
One of them is updated very frequently, and the other one, the update's slowed down. Yeah, and I couldn't tell you which one is which, but they're active on the Discord.
Yeah, and then of course every time we release an event, there's guides posted on the Reddit, which are linked everywhere, from Garwar and Silisa, that are generally pretty good. And yeah, also the Discord formations channel is always willing to help you out, try and figure out how to optimize the champions that you got. So,
okay, Sir Monstein, going to try and reach out to Larian to add any new characters they're making for Baldur's Gate 3 into Idle Champions once their game is out.
I would assume. I mean,
I can't imagine that not happening.
Yeah, I imagine that would happen. I can tell you absolutely everything I personally know about Baldur's Gate 3. Here we go. There's going to be a Baldur's Gate 3, guys.
Yeah, and apparently they're illithids. Yeah, illithids popping out of faces.
That is what I know.
Yeah.
So you guys know as much as I know about Baldur's Gate 3 in terms of like when it's coming out and what's going to be in it. So once we know more, we can start to talk about them, about what's going to be there.
Yeah. I don't know if any of the moderators in chat have links to any of the articles with the studio head of Larian or anything else. But they have talked a little bit more about what's going to be in it, which is to say 5e and post Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus. And that's it. Like, as far as official info goes, like it's a when it's done thing. So I imagine that makes them more than a year out, probably 2. I don't know.
That would be my guess based on being a developer and knowing how long it takes to make games.
Well, like, even just thinking about the other most famous RPG currently in development, the Cyberpunk game, their first trailer was how long ago?
Years.
Yeah, it was years and years ago.
Yeah.
And they created all their social media accounts and everything, and then they went inactive until like a year and a half ago. Yeah. And then, I'm sure they will have a big presence at E3 next week. Is that E3 next week?
E3 is coming up. Yeah, it's coming up very soon.
Yeah, there you go. Jack's Not Funny posted the link to the article, the Larian developer interview. Yeah. Anyway, so there's a couple more facts, but other than that, yeah, I suspect everybody's going to be voracious about information for Baldur's Gate 3, and we're not going to get any information about it this year, would be my guess. Like, I doubt we're going to hear anything else for a while.
Yeah.
So prepare yourself to wait. It's been 20 years. What's another like 50? No. When did Baldur's Gate 2 come out? Like 99, 2000? It was a while ago.
A long time ago.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I just remember dying to wizards in tents. That was my entire experience in that game.
Yeah.
You go through the forest, you're like, yeah, I can kill these spiders, no problem. And then you run into a wizard in a tent, and he just insta-gives your favorite character. And you're like, well, I didn't quick save for like 3 hours.
Yeah. Nomad84. What are the odds of 2 Evergreen champions being added at the same time or within the same month?
Ooh, so pretty low right now. And I know we announced a bunch of Evergreen champions a while ago, and unfortunately we've been purposely pushing those back just because of what I was mentioning earlier about there being so many champions and so few formation slots. So that's really the main reason that we haven't seen any new Evergreen champions in a while. It's because I don't want to overload with champions even outside of the events. So once we sort of have a way to deal with excessive champions on your bench, at that point I would expect to see a few more Evergreen champions or champions added in other ways. But until that point, I wouldn't expect to see any Evergreen champions, let alone two at the same time.
Mindless Systems. Could we possibly get an outfit for Walnut on her release, like the B outfits for Rosie and Strix?
That's always possible. I don't think we have any plans for it right now, but we haven't really talked really in depth about our release plans for Walnut internally yet. So maybe if we put Walnut in the game, who knows if we even will.
So Starphaser has a question that is the return of an old question. Will you ever have a community created champion? As in like the community votes on every part and type? Champion McChampion face. Would we do that?
Champion face. Absolutely. I think that'd be really cool. I'm trying to think of sort of how we would approach that. We'd probably give the community a bunch of options instead of just letting you guys pick sort of from scratch. We'd probably be like, here's 4 options for this. Here's 4 options for this. And then let you sort of build a champion in that way. But we don't have any plans to do that right now, but I could think of some fun ways to do that.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into that question right now. But I like what the community is thinking about. Champion McChampion, yeah. Build a champ workshop. It's the Homer. Any interesting news on Year 2 Dragon Down next week?
Oh, well, Year 2 Dragon Down is next week. The champion for it is a lizard folk who's got really awesome hair. At least I assume it's hair, some sort of headdress. I'm not actually sure. I didn't know that lizard folks had hair, but our champion has really awesome.
It's got like a mane, yeah.
Colorful mane, I guess. So that's really cool. And there's a variant that's pretty okay. So that's what I'll say. There's an okay variant. It'll be really fun.
I haven't actually looked at them yet. All right. Are you planning to make a similar option when purchasing chests as you did when opening? Being able to purchase more than one golden chest at once would be nice.
Yeah, we hear this request a lot, and we're thinking about it, but we don't have any sort of ETA on when or if that will get in. Sorry. It's kind of a non-answer answer, but...
Yeah, and on a similar note, players want an indicator of whether or not a champion is a tank or they have a high overwhelm point.
Yeah, that's getting the overwhelm point itself into the champion profile somewhere is something I want to do. And I also, there's a whole overhaul of the profile screen that I would like to do at some point to sort of show off how a champion works a little bit better and sort of like what things are formation abilities and can therefore like be usurped or apply to other champions, and what things are global and what things are self buffs. And so there's a bunch of little changes I want to make there, and one of them would be to sort of indicate a champion's tags a lot more clearly or at all.
I mean, you can look at their health total. It's the best way right now. It's like, can they take a hit?
Yeah.
Alrighty. How about adding special enemies like Malagrim rather than new heroes?
I think whenever we do sort of new adventures, we're always trying to think of at least one sort of interesting boss enemy to add to it. So that's more of Chris's department at this point in terms of making sure there's interesting stuff in there. But I always try and push him to do a little bit more with those, and then he comes back with more, and then I say, oh, no, we don't have tech time for this. So that's the seesaw of adventure design in a nutshell.
So Nomad at E4 would like to know when their last chance is to get Iris, or if there's any possibility there'll be a method of acquisition which is either cheaper or separates the familiar from the Founder's Pack or something else.
Yeah, so I think if we do a new Founders Pack, we will let everyone know quite a bit ahead of time that it'll be going away, so that you can grab it if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
And then in terms of once things are no longer available for purchase, whether they will ever become available through another acquisition method, it's hard to say whether or not we will. We certainly, if we add in some sort of collection screen into the game, we will certainly have to add a way to fill those bars. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was, but we don't really have any specific plans for how that will be implemented.
Yeah. And to reiterate, we are going to retire the Founders Pack this summer. And summer's not actually that far away anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Just to keep everybody in the loop. We don't have a date, though. So, yeah. I think we made the announcement a little while ago. Whenever Chris told me to make the announcement, I made it. So, #blame Chris. Alrighty. What are the special animal mobs in Friends of the Forest variant doing? Also, is there some joke I'm missing with the armored beaver?
I don't know that there's any sort of special meaning behind any of them. I think we were just looking at adding some little forest creatures with abilities that are just obnoxious and out of whack with sort of how they look, like the little hamster that just one-shots everything.
Is that what happens?
Which I guess kind of makes sense, because
I shouldn't have. I set up that adventure with familiars leveling my characters and just got my work done and tabbed back. Oh, it's done, and completed it. I didn't actually look at it. So
yeah, if you ever get to like a wall in that one and then a hamster sneaks up on you without getting killed, it'll just wipe your whole formation.
Oh, really?
They're actually not hamsters. They're miniature giant space hamsters.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah, just Boo's cousins coming after you.
Alrighty. Let's see. Butch Almighty wants to know if we have plans to reach out to members of other shows.
Yeah, as they sort of get recommended to us, we kind of look at them, I think, in general, and see if there's any opportunities there. But I think at this point, we've got a pretty long list of champions we're looking to add to the game. So maybe down the road somewhere.
Seven Bellow. So there's a 4th grade DLC. Will a new DLC for either the C Team or High Rollers come up?
That's an interesting question. I think the 4th grade DLC is really easy for us to do because all of those champions are available for free in-game, whereas like C Team and High Rollers, they're event champions, so players might not have them all, and then we're talking about adding a new way. If it's like a DLC, maybe you would unlock all the champions, and so we got to sort of price that into like how much it normally costs to unlock a champion outside, versus like a time game. There's a lot of sort of questions in that. And then so maybe, but no immediate plans.
Will there be any announcements during E3?
I assume there will be announcements.
I think there's going to be tons.
I assume you mean specifically from us.
Yeah.
And no, I don't think so.
I don't think anybody from the office is going to be there.
I don't even know specifically the days that E3 is happening, to be honest. I think it
starts next week.
Is it next week? Or
I'm sure. With the Baldur's Gate teaser dropping when it did, I'm sure Larian will be there. Whether or not they have much to show beyond art, I have no idea.
I'm hoping to see something about Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah, they said that they're not going to share stuff online, though. Like, it's going to be more like at E3 only. So I guess we'll see.
Damn, those exclusives.
Yeah, I know. It's almost like you're supposed to go to participate. It's weird. You can't just watch from home.
Yeah. What is this? 2000?
Oh, yeah, Sir Munstein. Larian is going to be there with Wizards. Tito already said he and Swen will be on the floor together.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that they have a booth. So... yeah. Did we see the new Baldur's Gate 3 teaser? Yes, we did. Not safe for work. Splat. Let's see. Could we perhaps get a dark and dicey champion to remember the show with? Says a lot about the connection players have with the show. Yeah. Although I did like that they had antagonistic characters. Like, I was hoping that show would take off and be super popular and keep going because they were all not good people.
It's just so hard to do that, right? It's so hard to have like interesting interactions with people who are just like selfish or antagonistic, or it's a challenge.
That and yeah, and then like you always have to wonder about whether or not they're just going to kill you like at some moment. Like I'm going to do this, cool. They shove you in the pit, and it's like, oh, well, I failed my deck save. I guess my character's dead. But also, just like there are a lot of shows. There are certainly more shows and podcasts than we will have time to put characters into our game over the next few years. Like there's an abundance of them. So, you know, we want to focus on groups that we're already working with. Get some of those finished.
Let's finish those, and then we'll move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Are there any plans to add more Ravenloft baddies like Lord Soth and Azalin?
So I think the last adventures we released for Grand Tour finished off sort of our Ravenloft arc. So I don't know that we'll really be going back there. But I mean, those guys could pop up somewhere else somehow, maybe. But we don't have any plans to go back to Ravenloft right now. We're going to try and shoot off in a different direction and see what other sort of material we can pull from. Obviously, there's a lot of D&D material out there, a lot of books, 5e books that came out before we did, so a lot of stuff to pull from. So I think Grand Tour is going to take a turn in that direction, away from Ravenloft and towards other things.
Well, and even to expand on that a little bit, the intent is not to do everything that's in each book. Like we're not going to spoil every single part of Chult in the Tomb of Annihilation, as well as we're not going to spoil everything that's in Waterdeep Dragon Heist, etc. So yeah.
Yeah, like when we were putting together Tomb of Annihilation, we looked at like the big map of Chult, and we're like, well, we'd like to go here and here and here, but that still leaves like 2/3 of the locations completely unexplored.
One of my favorite places in my home game was the like the pirate sort of fort with like all the ships that come and go. Like it's this pirate port that my group totally murder hoboed, but we didn't go there in the game.
No.
Yeah, and then we lost a bunch of stuff to the dragon turtle because dragon turtles suck.
Lost all your valuables.
Yeah. Why is Calliope's attack sound effect so loud?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I don't know.
First of all, thank you for playing with sounds on.
Yeah. You are one of 0.01% of our players who play with sound on.
Yeah. I'm sure the metric's a little bit higher. Well, a little bit higher.
We checked. So the sound being on is actually one of the options that we store in the cloud, and so we were able to look at that one, and it's a very, very, very low percentage of players who play with sound on, like ridiculously low.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't. The sad thing is because it's so low, we don't really focus on it all that much, which is probably why the.
All the people, new music, please. There's sound. Yeah. Well, they claim that Calliope's attack is the only reason they turned off the sound.
Yeah.
Maybe it's, I don't know. I kind of want to turn it on right now, but I'm not going to. I'll just make a note.
Yeah. No, I think if more people played with their sound on, and if we had someone in here who worked on who had any sort of sound qualifications, I think we'd probably be doing a better job at that. But it's one of those chicken and egg things where like we don't spend a lot of time on it because people don't have it on, and therefore people don't have it on, and therefore we don't have to spend a lot of time on it. So yeah, at this point it's a tough one.
I mean, I tend to have the game idling like on my work machine or at home, and then like I am playing or doing or watching something else because it's in the background for me. So,
yeah, me too. And I primarily, since we primarily started out on Steam, that's sort of the thing we've adopted.
IB Cerberus would like to know if we had considered setting it so that champions we're not using are familiars when they're not being used, which sounds a little
Sounds
OP.
like that's a lot of familiars. I think you'd run out of slots.
6 champions picking up your gold. I just picture this like fleet of characters following a group of murder hobos in a campaign, and like everywhere they go, like they're running up and picking up the gold pieces and like and like punching the background animals to steal their wallets.
That's an interesting idea, but not one I can see happening.
Alrighty. Will you ever create a new mode for the game that will be like a mini RPG adventure for the events way later down the line, or will it stay strictly an idle game?
I think it'll. I can't see us adding anything that would really change the core mechanic of the game. Just because if we were going to do that, we'd probably just make a totally different game. So we're probably always going to have this sort of formation, walking along, killing baddies kind of thing in the game is sort of the core mechanic of the game for all time.
Okay, we only have a few more, and I know you have other stuff to do, so
let's busy.
Get through the next few ones. Sir Monstein, I can answer that question after.
Okay.
Is Binwin getting an update for Year 2 of Dragon Down?
I don't believe so. We've kind of held off on doing the champion rebalances for Year 1 champions because we're planning on doing a bigger update like that, and it gives us more time to focus on making sure the new champions we're adding are cool.
Plans on making more ways to get equipment for event champions.
Yes, that is part of the next major system that we will be adding to the game at some point in the near-ish future.
What are the requirements for adding a champion to the game? Are there any chances of getting Planescape Torment characters?
Yeah, so I mean, Wizards is generally pretty open to every idea we've had for adding champions to the game. They really prefer if we do sort of 5e, like
Toril / Faerun based.
Forgotten Realms sort of stuff. But we've managed to stretch that a little bit. Like certainly doing the Warden stuff was probably a little bit out of those bounds.
But they said okay, so that made me happy.
But they said fine, so yeah. What was I going to say? I was going to say something interesting, and then I completely forgot what it was. Darn it.
Alrighty. If you decide to make a character in honor of Baldur's Gate, would you try to do Abdul Adrian, or would you literally try to make the most generic model possible so that they are a stand-in for each player?
I don't know. There's a bunch of Baldur's Gate champion or characters that have quite a bit of personality, and I think we'll probably focus on those guys before we do the sort of player.
There are a lot of really good Baldur's Gate characters.
There
are. BioWare outdid themselves.
Mm-hmm.
There's ones that were in multiple Baldur's Gate games. There's ones that were only used a handful of times. And lots of them are good, and lots of them have amazing characterization. And it says a lot about the quality of their writing and how well of a job they did. Just with, like Deacon Scalesinger or the immortal Minsk now, who was, a party character in Baldur's Gate and is now like practically the face of D&D. So
it's interesting what you can do in terms of like story and stuff when you don't have it's an interesting question of game development, like fidelity versus just telling a story. And it's something that I think a lot of game developers struggle with these days, where just the fidelity expectation on the graphics and the sound and the interaction is so high that it makes it more challenging to shift some of the storytelling into the player's imagination, which is something you could do with Baldur's Gate, where it's just like, portraits on a screen talking instead of having to do like fully animated, cinematics and whatnot.
Yeah,
so
or
it's going to
even
be
full voiceover with a gajillion lines of dialogue.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what how Baldur's Gate 3 handles all of those challenges.
I'm super curious because BioWare always killed it with their voiceover. Even in Anthem, which has its own host of problems. I mean, the voiceover that's there is phenomenal, just like you would always expect it to be. And some studios are really great at that kind of thing. I didn't play enough Divinity Original Sin 2 to know how good its VO was, but what I did play was, it's hardcore deep RPG stuff that is basically no longer for adults, because once you have responsibilities and kids, you just don't have time to play 200-hour RPGs. But very excited for it.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited for Baldur's Gate 3. I think it's going to be really cool.
We got one final question, and it's a super quick one.
Okay.
Can we get a better breakdown on some of the more complex blessings, like Slow and Steady, Classy Gathering, and All Walks of Life?
Oh, were you being sarcastic?
A little bit, yeah.
I mean, the easy answer to that is yes, that's something we want to do. The more complicated answer is we just have to figure out where we're gonna put those things. But I think we should be able to do that. It's just depends on when it becomes a focus for us, because we have to just... I mean, I think in this UI it's pretty easy. We can probably just stick in a current value somewhere. But I mean, even then in All Walks of Life there's not really space in this particular UI to do that.
You almost need a like a hovering tooltip, or I don't know.
Or they just need to be like buffs on the main screen that you can mouse over. Though again, with the console UI, it's harder. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's just a matter of finding a place to put that'll be apparent and obvious, and that everyone can find easily. So
Certainly, we can improve when it comes to communicating how everything in the game works.
Yep. Yeah, we will always be able to do better at that, and that's one of the things we're trying to do with the DPS meter changes that I talked about earlier in the stream. So we will always be trying to iterate and make the game easier to understand and more accessible. And yeah, I love the first question there.
Yeah, adding setting that mutes audio when the game is not in focus.
No, the non-bolded one.
Oh yeah. I got each of those more than once over the winter when I was tired apparently and looked it. So I've been getting sleep lately. Thank you. And yeah, I know you have stuff to do. So
yeah, I'm gonna go do those things. Speaking of lizard folks, I'm gonna go play with a lizard folk.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that sounded bad, actually. You're going to go do testing for the next champion.
I'm going to go do genetic testing on lizard folk, folks.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks, everyone, for the questions. Great questions. Hopefully, I managed to sneak some answers in there and didn't just deflect every single one of them. So, have fun with Dylan. I'm out of here.
Yep.
Peace.
Thank you.
Bye.
Oh, yeah. Here we go. Just give me a moment to get fully sorted. There's half a chair in view. I'm just gonna slide it over. There we go. Then it looks like it's just me, even though it's like a full studio of people. Thank you. Now I know we normally have our guests for the second half of the stream, but given Justin's schedule, I thought it might be a little bit more fun to just dive right in, get into it, get through some of those questions. Alrighty, so let's see. What do we got here? Now there's one question. There's at least one question in there we didn't go over because I can I can get into it. Oh, excuse me, without Justin. Let's see. So somebody asked, how have we not gotten in-studio characters in-game? We do. We have a number of characters that Codename Entertainment in the creation of Idle Champions developed for the game. The first one being Stokey, second and third being Krond and Grama. Warden is one of ours. Zorbu's one of ours. We don't do it very often, but we tend to do it with a focus on filling what we see at that time as a gap in our formations or in the meta, or like in some way something that we can do to, build meta or formation diversity. So we do create our own. Do you mean our in-studio campaign characters? Oh, I don't know how likely that is. A couple of them are really, I think, personally, really good characters that I would love to see if we could put them in. I don't know if that's something that we've really thought about. Certainly, it would have more meaning to some of our artists or developers if it was like one of their own characters getting adapted. And believe it or not, that's how Minsk got into Baldur's Gate. One of the developers, Cam, it's his character from high school. I don't know how many of you know that, but now Minsk is Minsk, but so it's not impossible, and I would love to, but I don't know how likely it is. We have a lot of stuff that shuffles around our champion roster behind the scenes these days, people that we're working with, things that are coming up, etc. So yeah. I see that there's somebody who keeps asking whether or not we're considering an alternative look or an alternative appearance for Cthulhu. So the appearance for Cthulhu that we have in game right now is actually the one that Chris Straub suggested. He suggested it at the time when Cthulhu already had a sort of grouping of red crystal eyes instead of just his normal drow eyes. Part of it, so our Cthulhu canonically. At least canonically for us, our Cthulhu officially is using Disguise Self to look like he did. That's really it. Let's see. So, Clado Dragon, what about adding a setting that mutes the audio when the game is not in focus? I will pass that along to David. I don't know. I mean, it's going to be something that's pretty low on the priority list because, like, as Justin was explaining, such a vast, overwhelming percentage of our players play with the audio off that is actually one of the main reasons we don't really focus on improving or doing much with our audio. We, you know, as developers, like, we always want to improve our game, and we like the idea of adding more music and having better sound effects and stuff like that. But, like, you know, it's not something we're focusing on, at least not currently. Suggestion for an interesting evil character that is currently on a stream: Makaria Radha, Cleric of Mirkul from Roll20 Presents, played by Blue Jay. So I don't know how many of you know, but we've actually already got one Roll20 Presents character in our game, Violet Miller's Ishi Snaggletooth from their Tomb of Annihilation campaign. And so, you know, not going to make any promises, but I feel like the chances of us talking to them about more is not impossible. Yeah, it's but as also iterated or also mentioned by Justin, we do want to finish some of our groups off. Like, you know, there are more High Rollers, Aerois champions coming to the game. There's at least one more C Team character, and, you know, there are other Acquisitions Incorporated characters too, and so, you know, we want to make sure that we start filling out some of these rosters. In general, are there any more Tabaxi characters currently planned to be added? That's a general enough question that I don't know if I can answer it. What I can confirm that there is not a Tabaxi character planned for the near future. Is there ever going to be a way to just buy potions in the shop? Sorry if I asked before. No, it's okay. I'm here to answer questions. It's totally all right if somebody showed up. So there are ways we can do that. Like right now, your option to get potions is to just purchase chests, and, you know, they show up in some chests. And that's kind of where we want it to stay right now. We don't have plans to create a specific shop where you could go in and buy very specific potions of each type or anything like that. At least not currently, because that, in our minds, would require a greater look at the in-game economy and how players earn it and how they spend it and stuff. And it's not something that we have high on our priority list at the moment. Alrighty, now that you've crossed worlds with High Rollers Aerois, any chance you might reach out to MCDM to bring in the Chain of Acheron? They have some fantastic characters. I mean, it's a possibility, Garwar. It's not something that there's an element of what I can and cannot disclose in terms of what we may or may not be talking to people about behind the scenes. So anything that has not already been announced, I can't really get into, except to say that we love it when our players suggest, either specific characters from books or from shows, or shows that they love, for us to look at, possibly integrating into the game. And please keep on doing it. I make notes on this kind of stuff whenever it happens, and yeah. DC Backroads, any plans for a soft cap increase? Absolutely. Hammer O, is there a longer version of the in-game audio loop music? No, I think the version we have is the version we have. It's kind of just built to loop in that way. Artifexy, the new adventures are great but not challenging. We haven't seen any truly hard missions since Azaka came out. Do you have any good news for us soon? So that's an interesting thing. The nature of the game has changed somewhat since Azaka came out, and the tanking, shielding, and healing update was dropped. We do have plans for challenging variants. We need to balance that with a lot of factors. We do want players who are new-ish to the game, players who aren't day one, to be able to complete things that come out. Yeah, it's funny because once you have reached a certain threshold of how many champions you have unlocked and how much equipment and the quality of it across all of your formations, like it can be pretty easy to do a lot of these variants because you're like, oh, well, these characters are restricted, but I can do this optimized formation or another optimized formation. And part of that is like the information we take for granted, like many of you are experts in this game at this point. You know the game well enough, and you have enough of the characters that you can look at a variant and be like, well, there's no challenge to that because I can just do this formation or this other formation or whatever. But a lot of players haven't reached that point yet. So, yeah, it's kind of one of those things. I mean, y'all are good at the game and you have good stuff on a lot of your characters, and it's that kind of like building for an experience that diverse where players can have any one of 30 or 40 champions and all these different combinations. Like it's challenging to develop for, so we don't want it to be so difficult that a tiny percentage of players are completing it. Like when we first launched the Azaka's Procession Part 2 variant, it was crazy difficult, and like I used a bazillion potions and spent 45 minutes just fighting a Serac at 300 during a weekend buff, the weekend it came out. It was just nuts. So yeah, it's challenging is a difficult thing, but I will pass along to Justin that you want things to be harder. Well, Justin and Chris. Alrighty, this question may have been a better question for while Justin was here, but as the player base ages, both literally and in game playing time, and the diversity of player experiences increases, are there plans to expand, redirect, or change anything on the community interaction and management front? Potentially off-base example, give Dylan the budget to hire an intern to build an FAQ. It's funny because an FAQ is literally on my to-do list right now, and it's something that I hope to get working on later today. Yeah. It's funny that you should mention hiring as well, because we're a growing company and we do hire new people. Yeah, like, are there plans to expand or redirect or update any of that stuff? Yes, but we aren't unhappy with the amount that we engage with our players now. I mean, we engage with our players dramatically more frequently than many developers do. We're in the Discord, we're responding to tickets, we do weekly AMAs on the Reddit. Well, when there's enough of us in-house that somebody can do it, we do weekly live streams. So like, I don't feel like we're lacking in the amount of engagement that we do, but certainly FAQ type stuff, more updated stuff. I mean, that's why there is a Discord. Discord.gg/idlechampions for those of you who aren't there. Like, there's a ton of people in there who can help you. There are community created guides and other stuff as well. The subreddit. I mean, players post stuff like that a lot. I think I look at bigger developers that have teams vastly larger than ours, and many of them do quarterly, like dev live streams or Q&A sessions, because most of the time they're focused on work, whereas we like to keep ourselves a little bit more agile and able to react and address stuff more frequently and more quickly. So yeah, it's it's a tricky question to answer, but it's certainly something that we always want to work better on, and we aspire to be better on. Arware Hall, can you tell us a little more about this mysterious lizard folk champion? How about just what class or role it will be filling? I could say that the Idle Champion spotlight for our next champion will come early next week, and that if you want a better look at them, stay tuned. Let's see. Wade Wilson, would you be more likely to consider making supply chests a type of chest you can buy rather than just buying potions? Maybe at an exchange rate closer to gold chest rates? Well, no, because supply chests have a disproportionate value for players who have been around longer. Like, the more veteran of a player you are, the more value those hold. And those players have how many gems lying around? I mean, I have hundreds of thousands of gems, and I am nowhere near as active as a lot of players. So, you know, I'm not saying that we'll never integrate supply chests into purchasing in some way, because I personally think that we probably will do something like that. But in terms of how we'll do that, that's something for Chris and Justin to figure out. Alrighty, lose for the win. Since you guys have Spurt, any plans for Critical Role characters? We would. So we're very fortunate to be in a position where we can help support Critical Role, because we love the show. I am actually wearing a Critical Role shirt right now, although it's kind of hard to tell on this, but it's one of the new ones. Now that being said, we would love to work with Critical Role in that context. I don't think it is, like me, Dylan, personally, I don't think it is likely that we will be able to get characters from either Vox Machina or the Mighty Nine into the game, as Critical Role has exploded in popularity, and was doing that even before their crazy successful Kickstarter. And so from a business stance, the established value of those characters, like that IP, is just it's just skyrocketing. It's worth its weight in gold, and I think that they are going to be taking a step back and looking at their options for what they can do with these characters, because I wouldn't be surprised if they pushed a company to make their own game, that kind of thing. So who knows, because they probably went around town and had everybody tell them no, and then their Kickstarter made, I don't know, 11 million or whatever it was, and ensured that what was going to be a special film event is now going to be a series, which is probably going to turn into multiple series as companies want to purchase distribution rights for it, and so on and so forth. So bringing that all back to it, I think they're going to have a mind to bigger things. So we would absolutely love to work with them, but I would personally be surprised if any of the characters from Vox Machina or Mighty Nine made it in. Let's see, Giant Dwarf. When will overleveled, quotes, slot 6 gear be addressed? That's not something that we can answer. I mean, every time we try to give a time frame on something, we miss the deadline. So we'd rather just, be able to release stuff closer to it. So Lisa, did Justin say anything about Ashar's bonds with Warforged, Aarakocra, or Turtles? That it's a possibility that in the future there may be another series of bonds, but it's not something that we're planning for right now. Are there any plans for having cross-team synergies such as Waffle Crew and C-Team, since they've starred on each other's shows? We thought about it, and it's not something that we're currently planning for, but the worry around that kind of thing is that, because right now you could have all the members of Dice Camera Action and Acquisitions Incorporated, the C-Team that are currently in the game, none of them share slots. And Walnut will also not be sharing a slot with any of them. So you could have 8 characters from those 2 shows all in the formation. Now, if they already have bonuses from being grouped with each other. If you also added bonuses for those groups working together, it's like, what would be your incentive to use any other champions ever again if there are that many synergies between them? So that's a bit of a worry. So we've consciously decided to limit it to in-group synergies for now. It's something we'll evaluate in the future, but it's not something we're working on. Fire Crystal. Could we get another form of currency like gems, but with a different use? For example, maybe something along the lines of upgrading gear levels or whatever. At least another form of earning blacksmith contracts. We hear you. I mean, we're not 100% satisfied with Time Gate's ability to earn equipment and item levels for event champions. And so that's, it's not a be-all, end-all solution. Blacksmith contracts help, but there's more that can be done, and I know that it's something that Chris and Justin would like to address, but I don't know if there's anything that we can. No, there probably isn't anything we can share about that yet. Any plans to add Belwar Disengulp? It's always a possibility. We do have access to basically all the Wizards-owned characters. It's worth mentioning that some of the IPs associated with D&D and some of them that are part of it are like their ownership is in dispute. Like Wizards of the Coast doesn't categorically own everything related to Dungeons and Dragons. There's a reason that there hasn't been a Greyhawk setting book, right? Like, because I'm pretty sure that's still owned by another party. So, they purchased TSR, but that doesn't mean that they have everything. So like there are some different parts of it are owned by different groups, and so like we have, as a licensee of D&D, like we have access to what they own, and so they own the Forgotten Realms categorically and everything created in it is licensed through it. So like a character from the Dritz series is possible, characters from some other things maybe not, and certainly we tend to focus on 5e Dungeons and Dragons and Toril specifically. So yeah, it's always a possibility, but yeah. Alrighty. Will a fourth campaign appear to have a new formation to master? Absolutely. Esmerandia, we have. It's not a secret, but I don't have an ETA on. We will be doing a Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus permanent campaign alongside Grand Tour of the Sword Coast, Tomb of Annihilation, and Waterdeep Dragon Heist. I don't have an ETA on it. But yes, we will definitely be doing one. Alrighty. Suggestion regarding the unexpected rarity of white and green tier gear for non-evergreen champions. During the events, random chest drops for boss fights could have a chance of being a silver or an event, or thank you for your availability. It's something that we've like received as feedback, and since that plays directly into the a lot of factors that we have to pay very close attention to in terms of how we make the game, because while we are a game that you can play for free, and we pride ourselves on being one that if you're willing to put in the time, you can unlock every variant, unlock and complete every variant, unlock and earn equipment for every champion. We pride ourselves on that because we feel like there's a lot of games that are that don't deliver on that kind of possibility, even though they are free. But at the same time, we do need, if a percentage of our players doesn't buy anything, if nobody buys anything, then we can't keep the lights on, because while we are a game you play for free, we do need income. So anything that could shift the way that part of the game works is something that we have to actually take very seriously and very careful look at. So things like event chests are a part of that. Alrighty. I think the type of mode that supports that exact problem, challenging content for veterans but accessible to newbies, is a randomized floor, endless tower type mode, where each floor is a variant of sorts. Each floor gets harder, but not just in HP/DPS checks. Thanks for the feedback, Neogia. Believe me when I say that endgame progression and endgame challenge is something that has been on our minds for a long time. And I very much look forward to when we can start to talk about some of those features we have planned before we come out of early access. Because, it's something we very much like to do. Alrighty, just want to say a general thank you for putting out a fun game where I get to indulge my collector impulse without going broke. Also, the opportunity to ask you guys questions is awesome. No worries, Wade Wilson, 1983. Thank you for joining us. Dialogues are a two-way thing, right? It's not just edicts coming from a developer to players and then no response coming back. We care about the feedback of our community a lot. So thank you for participating in it. Malvolio. I'm just going to take a drink here while I read this next one. Alrighty, Malvolio. Is there a chance we will get any heroes from the Dragonlance campaign? So as somebody who read probably 30, 40 Dragonlance novels, that would be really cool. Kryn is a great setting. Big fans of Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman's what they've created, starting the book series. Now, because Kryn is not a part, is apart from Toril across the multiverse of D&D, it's extremely unlikely and it's even more unlikely. To be able to include, hero protagonist characters from that. I don't know who owns Dragonlance / Kryn. I don't know if that was like a TSR owned thing or what, because I never actually, I don't remember what the bindings of those books looked like. So yeah, I think it's unlikely. I would love nothing more than to have Raceland Majir in the game. As I say, probably every few weeks, because somebody will ask. But yeah, I don't know how likely it is. Alrighty. Lisa, can we get tanks classified as tanks? And what about Barrowan? She's tanks-like. Is she supposed to be a tank? She doesn't count as one. That's a great series of questions. So Justin addressed part of it in that, we have been looking to, looking for a way to include both the, whether or not a champion is a tank and what their overwhelm point is in the character sheet, and it's something that the UI needs to be able to accommodate. And so, it's definitely a bit of feedback that gets passed along to the UI team, and when they start iterating on it, it's a possibility. Nebula Bomb, how do you guys decide what new heroes you add to the game? Like, why did you add Spurt from Critical Role, for example? Timing. It was just timing. The stars aligned and we were able to add Spurt, and so we jumped on the opportunity. We saw the feedback that everybody had to Adam making one of our artists made a GIF of Spurt getting splatted by a fire giant, and we kind of love that. And we got a lot of positive feedback on it, and then we did an April Fool's joke that we thought was really funny. And we were glad that some people thought it was funny too. But again, our players were just like, are you actually going to do him as a champion? Like, we want him as a champion. So we did him as a champion. A lot of them are like lining up like when somebody has time to work with us, and lining it up with our content schedule, and lining it up with, are we going to be at an event? Like, hey, are we going to be at a PAX? Like, oh, well, we could talk to so-and-so from the C team about this thing or whatever. So like, there's a whole bunch of moving pieces behind the scenes that kind of dictate the timing for when we release characters as champions, and how frequently we can do it. And then, it's just kind of, there's no definitive answer. This is how we decide. Like, there's tons of stuff going on behind the scene. Lisa, anything about Rosie buffs? Poor Rosie. Not at the moment. I mean, Rosie being a year 2 champion, I wouldn't expect any changes to her anytime soon. I don't think that fundamentally Rosie is a weak champion. I think that she's just in a very competitive slot, and she needs more support to work with her. Starphaser. Will we ever be able to mix and match slots instead of being locked into the champions that locked per slot? So you're wondering whether or not champions in the, any one of the 12 bench slots could be moved around, or you'd be able to have more than one character from one slot out in the formation or whatever. That's an idea that we explored for a little while, but it proved to be something that we can't balance around. It's just adding too much complexity to an already complex system. So I don't know how likely it is, but it's not an idea that is completely dead. So there's a chance that it may get revisited in the future, but it's not something we're planning on doing. Let's see. Is there any chance to see some of the characters from the old 3.5 handbook show up? Even if it's not playable, it would be cool to see them as NPCs. I mean, it's always possible. And like, obviously the Great Modron March event that we just had, like, that harkens back to a pretty old module. The Wizards of the Coast very much likes us to focus on more modern D&D, like Forgotten Realms, stuff that's published in 5e, and so like we're pretty focused on that. So it makes older characters unlikely unless they have a more modern incarnation. But it's not impossible either. Speaking of Supply 215, any possibility that Magic the Gathering characters from the Ravnica crossover? Probably not. Wizards of the Coast likes to keep. I know the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica exists, and that they've been publishing plane shift modules that offer campaign setting options for Magic the Gathering settings for quite some time. But despite that, They very much like to keep the D&D IP separate from the Magic IP in a lot of ways. So I don't think we will get some kind of MTG crossover. Certainly not one with like a named character. Like the chances of a Jace Beleren or a Soren Markov ever making it into the game are extremely slim, which is too bad because I love Soren Markov because I like edgelord characters. But that being said, also because of the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, the chances of us maybe creating our own original champion that is like a Loxodon or a Vidalcan is more possible. But again, it's subject to whether or not Wizards of the Coast would approve us doing so. So it's a difficult question to answer in a satisfactory way. Characters from Magic the Gathering, characters making it into the game, very, very unlikely. But races or other aspects maybe making an appearance. I mean, part of my nerd self wonders like, what would a full scale Phyrexian invasion of Waterdeep look like? Yeah, that's not going to happen. Obo Crazy. As somebody who hasn't read any Dragonlance, do you have a suggestion for which book to start with? I mean, the original Seasons books that they started with are probably the best bet. Personally, I always found the stories around the two brothers, Caramon and Raistlin, to be the most interesting. A lot of the other characters didn't get fleshed out quite as much as they did. There was like a Brothers War or Brothers something or other, a couple of books that were good. But yeah, just the original like Dragons of Autumn Twilight, and God, it's been long enough since I read them that I can't even remember the names anymore. But those are the ones I would suggest. Yeah. Alrighty. Any movement on the shiny duplicate thing? I am approaching max capacity. No update to give. Anything about Mist Golden Epics being able to... no update for that either. Those are on our list for things that we want to address with updates and features and so on. So, yeah. I personally never understood why Wizards of the Coast has kept Magic the Gathering out of Dungeons & Dragons. Jace is totally a double-schooled illusionist / enchanter. Yeah. With, an emphasis on, like, he's almost got psionic-like mind abilities, right? Like, naturally gifted. It's one of those things, like, I don't know if it's because of Wizards or if it's because of Hasbro, and I don't really want to speculate on it because I really have no idea. But, yeah, they keep them separate. I mean, it's their choice. What I do know is that the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica has some of the best art of any D&D book in it because, hey, all those artists also paint Magic cards pretty regularly, and like such a incredible volume of art is created for Magic the Gathering each year at like the highest possible quality level, like world class, that they just have a lot of it to choose from. And so the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica book is beautiful. Like, it is filled with stunning stuff. And on top of that, there are tons of awesome monsters in it. Like, even if I never run a Ravnica setting game, I'm going to use some of the monsters in it in my other D&D games because they're great. They're so good. I mean, a bunch of them are just like, rare or mythic Magic card monsters that are now D&D 5e balanced monsters. So I'm stoked. Yeah, it's very cool. Alrighty, I just need to take another sip. Actually, I have an idea to run past all of you. For one of my D&D campaigns that I'm running, I'm running some friends through Waterdeep Dragon Heist campaign. And none of them will ever see this, so I don't have to worry about whether or not I talk about that campaign or the design behind it, because spoilers for that campaign, but not spoilers for anybody I work with or anybody who does actively watch this stream. So they've already lost Waterdeep Dragon Heist. Like, I couldn't justifiably push time for them any longer, and at this point it's the summer, and they have already lost to the Castellanters. And, they've kind of set themselves up in an interesting way. But I'm thinking about what to do as a sort of finale of that campaign, given that, the antagonists that they were kind of facing off with, losing is kind of a tough pill to swallow and is not a very satisfying way to it's not a very satisfying way to wrap up your D&D campaign. Like, it's one thing if you have an epic TBK at some moment or whatever, and like, but like they kind of have like danced around the things they're working on for so long that their enemies just kind of proceeded with their plans and executed them. So they I'm trying to think of what to do with them. Like, everything is gearing towards the Castellanters are hosting a summer ball at the summer solstice. That's, everybody's been invited to, and like it's basically like their victory ball, right? Like at this point, they've mostly won, and it's just kind of one of those things where I'm like trying to debate what my next big event is for the city of Waterdeep, and there's a few different directions I'm thinking at, in terms of just epic stuff to kind of wrap it all up that's a little different than what's in the book. So yeah, give them a chance to steal something of value from them and ransom it back. But like literally the only thing that of value, I don't want to spoil too much of the Dragon Heist campaign. Like, I don't think the characters are evil enough to do a lot of that stuff. I think they're gonna take the defeat pretty hard. So I'm just trying to think of like what else to do to make it a satisfying experience for them. Yeah, this is kind of one of those things. A massive kegger, yeah. I mean, they're gonna get to go to this ball, and they're going because they were invited to be part of the entourage of Esvel Rosnar, whom some of you may know as the Black Viper, and so they're attending the ball. And Esvel's going to try and rob them because, hey, she heard they've got this hoard, but the characters already set themselves up not to be able to like fully succeed or even really succeed. They kind of screwed themselves over. So I'm just debating what to do. A Game of Thrones style ending for revenge. Yeah, well, I mean, Waterdeep being Waterdeep, it's so tolerant, right? Like, there was that part where during the live stream for the Descent, Chris Perkins said that if Waterdeep is Metropolis, Baldur's Gate is Gotham City, and it was kind of an interesting way to put it, in that like Waterdeep has its shit together, right? Like, they have a city watch and city guard. They are extremely, it's like this mecca for all races, and dragons can't even go there, and they've got these statues they can animate and all this other stuff. So I'm just trying to think of what to do that can really a total party kill while defeating their nemesis would be the least cruel. Yeah, that's a good idea. Is there no way to force at least a chance to disrupt the plans? So I have created an opportunity with the ball, the Castellanters ball, their summer solstice ball, where the players can disrupt their plans. Absolutely. They won't. There's no way they're getting the hoard. They totally messed themselves over for that. Nemesis actually decides to hire them. Oh, that's a good idea. I call him Minsk because I gave him a Russian accent. Excellent, yeah. Anyways, yeah, thanks for the feedback. I was just very curious about it because I've been bouncing around a bunch of ideas in it. And yeah, I look forward to returning that campaign. That's a campaign that I don't get to play very frequently because it's friends from out of town, and it's like my wife and I and one of her best friends and her partner, and like we get together and we play, and it's like quarterly, but we play for like a full weekend. We'll do 15 hours of D&D in a weekend, yeah, they want to hire their money for it. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. I like it, Lauren. I was thinking about that, yeah, and I had some other more radical ideas as well. The problem with these players is that they've already signed infernal contracts that they did not check over, and they signed them a while ago, so they're already owned. Right? So as a DM, I couldn't believe they were doing it when they did it. but it was very interesting. Yeah. Anyways, cool. So yeah, we got 20 minutes left. Is there anything? Yeah, who better to help the players get out of the infernal contracts than the Castellanters? That's a very good point. That's a very good point, Lauren. Yeah, and a good lead into Baldur's Gate. Yeah, I know. I didn't intend that at the time, but upon learning more about the next book that's coming, I'm like, oh, well, that's a good segue. So this campaign may segue directly into that campaign, which would be cool. I mean, I know a lot of new players or new DMs might be a little bit worried about the idea of trying to upscale the difficulty of encounters for a book. Like, let's say you do segue from Waterdeep Dragon Heist directly into Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus. Upping the challenge rating by a few levels for each of the challenges isn't as hard as you might think. There are tons of tools online that you can do it. I know D&D Beyond has just introduced like the beta features for another tool. Castellander's buying the contracts. I like that, Lauren. I like that a lot. Yeah. So there's a lot of ways to like bolster the intensity of your encounters. Don't hesitate to do so. Like if you want it to start at level 6 or 7 or 8 instead of level 1, go for it. It just means that they're going to fight assassins and not thugs or whatever. Speaking of Baldur's Gate, any crossover between Baldur's Gate 3 and Idle Champions? At this point, you guys know as much about Baldur's Gate 3 as we do. We are like you. We are excited, and I have no doubt that they will create characters that we would love to include in the game. And maybe we will, maybe we won't. I don't know. We'll see. When will Idle Champions get challenge ratings? It's funny. Whenever somebody asks when, it's one of those things where it's like I already can't really answer that question because like there's no definitive ETAs I can give on much of anything other than like I know next week Dragon Down 2 is coming out because like we've reached a point in our planning and implementation where like it's extremely likely that it's going to hit its release target. But beyond that, it's really tough. So it's one of those things where it's on our list of priorities. It's on our list. It's on our to-do list. How it ranks in terms of our priorities fluctuates depending on what's going on. I don't know how many of you are around for the earlier part of the conversation when Justin was here talking about what it's like to develop across so many platforms. But like, having challenges with keeping all the different platforms up to date with different things is it's real. I mean, like sometimes an Apple build will get rejected just because they found something that was already there, or they no longer like something that we've been doing for a long time. So that stuff is it's always going to be a challenge, and it makes it that much harder to get a lot of stuff done. So I see somebody who's finally asking about this weekend's weekend buff, and this is a time gate weekend before Dragon Down, right? So if you get a Dragon Down champion, which is to say Binwin Bronze Bottom, maybe don't unlock them because you can do that next week. This weekend coming up, June 7th to June 10th, neutral good weekend or neutrally good weekend. Buffs for Brunner, Evelyn, Farida, Valanya, and Tyrell. Yeah. That's an interesting selection, actually. I'm not sure which kind of formation I would use doing that. Evelyn, Brunner, Farida, Valanya, Tyrell. Maybe a Krond formation. Yeah. Anyways, no. Maybe. Anyways. Yeah. Cool. Alrighty. What else? Here in the chat, a code was posted a few minutes ago, but unfortunately I reloaded the page and the posts were gone. What was that, and does the insertion come again? Well, if you look in the corner up there, there is a combination number. A 12-digit combination that you can enter into the in-game cryptex. So I don't know how many of you play on PlayStation 4 and Xbox, but you got this little new chest here. Unlock a locked chest. This is part of the new code redemption system that we implemented into the game. So now that you have opportunities to open a locked chest, and here is a cryptex with which to do so. Now, this will be a little bit slower for console players because your options to copy and paste are a little bit different. If you have access to a keyboard, you can type it in, which works for me right now because I'm playing with the Steam version of the game. So you can type in your codes, and then you can also switch to a 16 character mode to enter in a legacy code, one of the older ones. But yeah, all codes that are not expired now work for every platform that you can find Idle Champions on. So yeah, a lot of very hard work went into that, and yeah, it's we're excited for that feature to finally be out. So yeah, the one supply chest code, all one word, one supply chest, will get you a supply chest. You're welcome. Alrighty, let's see. Might be a little off topic, but I have never DM'd using a module before. I feel like it will be torture for me to be in a box. How much freedom does a DM has, as the next book does look interesting? I mean, a DM always has as much freedom as they want. Modules are not... They're not a box for you to play in. They are tools for you to potentially pull out of a box and use in your campaign. The Waterdeep Dragon Heist campaign does a great job of giving you a ton of options in that there's multiple antagonists with clear reasons for doing what they're doing and a lot of different ways that this can play out. But at the end of the day, like, it's your story, right? Like, it's the story of you as a DM and your players. And, you know, just do the best story that you can do with them. I mean, you can go off adventure, off script anytime you want. But what the campaign books do offer is a really awesome opportunity for you to have some tools made for you. Like, you know, these villains have motivations and they have settings and resources, and this is what their layers are like, and this is, you know, a lot of these other things. So it's like, you know, you can approach it in a lot of different ways. I know that some books are a little bit and Nitslako or Nislako, or I'm not quite sure how to pronounce his name, mentions in the chat where, like, it kind of railroads gameplay into a specific thing. But, like, I mean, it's up to you whether or not to do that. The DM doesn't have to railroad anybody, which I know can be frustrating when you have players that get distracted easily. I kind of want them to, like, no, can you please, like, you found this funky thing and, like, it leads to something else. Can you go do that? But yeah, you just adapt. I mean, improvise and adapt. Alrighty, in the future, will there be an art contest for a best champion skin that could become available? You know, I don't think anybody has actually asked that question before, Starphaser. So I'll make a note here, because that might be something that we do. It's certainly an interesting idea. So maybe not. Nebula Bomb, you can put in the old codes. If you go into the screen, you switch it over to the 16 character ones, because all codes before the past week or so have 16 characters instead of 12. So if you have some of those legacy older combination numbers, older codes, you can still enter them in. You just have to toggle it in the menu. You can also, you know, copy paste or just type with your keyboard. Like, I know some players thought that this was a slower system for entering in your code, but it doesn't have to be. Isn't it just Tusk Love? Oh God. Oh man. Anyways, it's 10:02. I'm going to start winding this down as we get ready. I got a laundry list of things to jump on, including that FAQ that was being asked about earlier. If you have a player goes, but the book says, and we are playing a book for a reason. No, I mean, if a player wants to be a very specific, like, if they want to play a very specific adventure in a very specific way, and you don't as a DM, then, I mean, that's something that you two have to reconcile, right? Like, this is what makes Session Zeros so good. You can ask players, like, what kind of tone do they want? Like, is this gritty, harsh Game of Thrones, or is this, like, fun, adventurous, playing rock music, A Knight's Tale? Like, where you know, like, how far in whichever direction do you want tone-wise for your game? What do players want out of the campaign? Do they want to feel epic? Do they want to do they want to delve into mysteries? I mean, I've had fantastic D&D sessions where it's just exploration, no combat of any kind. And I've had fantastic D&D sessions where it's just combat, where you're like, you get tactical, you have a map out, you have minis, whatever, and like, it's what does that group feel like playing? Don't feel like you have to specifically do it in any one way all the time. Just listen to your players and do your best to make sure that everybody at the table is having fun. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about who you're playing with and whether or not you're having a good time. I mean, the rules aren't even important for that. There's no rule that says have fun, and like, that's up to you. But yeah, it's just, have fun with them, and have a good time and enjoy the time that you get to spend with your friends. I know for a lot of us, especially once you start getting a little older and having more responsibilities, just having the time to meet up with friends to play can be a challenge, and it's like you gotta relish it, enjoy it. Any sort of bestiary or icon definition menu for Idle Champions coming? This is something we would like to find a way to address, but I don't have an answer for you that can address that. Like, we recognize the core root of those issues, and like, it's something that we want to address. Okay, WKD Knight. Is there a way to implement an option to save how you have your familiar set up so that you can load your familiar configuration when you start a new run? Not yet. Not yet. It's something that we want to implement with an update to our familiar system when we add more familiars and we want to increase their functionality and further iterate on it. But right now there isn't currently an option for saving familiar saves. Saving your familiar kind of positioning. So we'll get there. But yeah, that's something we haven't got to yet. All right. I put relish on your friendships. Yeah. I always like mustard more than relish as well, Silisa. But yeah, just have fun. Have fun with your friends. I mean, that's what D&D is all about. Spending time with your friends, having fun, and like forming cool memories of adventure together. Because like, when you think back to a campaign, you don't think back to like, I love it when you were playing such and such a character and your character did this. You say, I loved it when like when we were playing last week and you cleaved that dragon's head off, it was awesome. Or whatever. It's like you're creating real memories in an awesome way, and it's something that makes Dungeons and Dragons such a unique form of entertainment. I thought Canadians like mayonnaise. No, that's an American thing. Yeah, we like bacon. Anyways, I'm going to wrap this up. I know that we're about to announce the winner of the latest raffle. Good luck and congratulations, etc. Raffle draw. Here we go. Waiting for it. This is the last thing. Mage Othello. Congratulations, Mage Othello. You just got 5 gold supply chests. So yeah. A Baldur's Gate 3 trailer is out. It sure is. Don't watch it at work. It's a little messy. Okay. This has been our show for today, Thursday, June 6, 2019. Be sure to look that date up in Wikipedia. It's a big date with some pretty incredible historical events that really matter for what the world is like today. So I encourage you to look into it and read up on it, because you should. Thank you all so much for joining us and participating in the Idle Champions and D&D communities. You guys are all awesome. This show exists because of a number of amazing people behind the scenes. Amazing folks, including my co-producers, Erica and Clive, as well as our partners at Dungeons & Dragons, Greg, Bart, Pelham, Allison, and Xiaoling. Huge thanks to Justin for joining me to talk about everything we talked about. I mean, we went through quite a lot in that first hour. Welch's Game Juice is coming up next, followed by Critical Role at 7. So have a wonderful weekend, everybody. And yeah, take care. Cheers.